The small transport ship shook as fire alarms blared. Sparks flew from the control panel as Jake fought to keep the ship steady. Had been delivering supplies to a nearby trade station when a group of space pirates jumped him out of nowhere. His shields were gone, engines were failing, and there was only one planet close enough to crash land on. He pressed a few buttons, trying to angle the ship toward the green and blue planet below. He didn't know its name. The system was barely mapped, but it was his only chance. "Hold together just a little longer," he whispered. The ship hit the upper atmosphere and the hull groaned. Flames danced around the view window. Jake braced himself as gravity pulled harder. The ship dropped fast. Alarms screamed louder, and everything went white. When Jake opened his eyes, everything was quiet. Smoke filled the cabin, and the lights flickered. He coughed and unbuckled himself. One side of the ship was ripped open, letting in fresh air and sunlight. He staggered outside, boots crunching against soft dirt. Giant trees with glowing vines stretched high above. Birds with long tails flew overhead, and a strange blue mist drifted low along the ground. The place felt like a dream. His body hurt all over, but nothing seemed broken. He had no idea where he was, but he was alive. He didn't stay alone for. Long dot figures moved between the trees. Tall, graceful forms with smooth skin and strange armor. Their eyes glowed faintly, and each held a spear or a blade. They didn't speak at first, just circled him. Jake raised his hands slowly. "I come in peace," he said. "I crashed here. I'm not a threat." One of them, taller than the rest, stepped forward. Her armor was darker, and her eyes sharper. She stared at him, silent, studying every inch of him. Then she spoke. "You are human." Her voice was calm but strong. Jake nodded. "Yes, I didn't mean to land here. I didn't even know this planet was inhabited." She turned to the others and said something in their language. They lowered their weapons slightly, but their eyes stayed wary. She looked back at Jake. "Follow. You will answer questions." Jake didn't argue. They led him through the forest to a city hidden among cliffs and rivers. The buildings looked ancient but alive, covered in vines that glowed with soft light. The streets were clean. People stopped and stared as the group passed, whispering to each other. Most had never seen a human before. The tall woman brought him to a large hall made of stone and glass. Inside, there were murals of battles and leaders. She pointed to a seat near a fire pit and said, "Sit." Jake did. She sat across from him, watching. "My name is Leora," she said. "I was queen once." "Once?" Jake asked. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she poured a drink into a carved wooden cup and handed it to him. "You will stay here until we decide what to do." "Thank you," he said. "I mean it. I just want to fix my ship and leave if possible." "Your ship is broken beyond repair," she replied. "You are here now. You must understand our ways." Jake nodded slowly. The days that followed were quiet but strange. Jake was given a small room in Leora's hall. Food was brought to him, and a guard followed him when he walked. Still, he wasn't treated badly. Leora came to speak with him every day, at first just to ask questions about Earth, about humans, about their wars and their machines. But as the days passed, their talks grew longer. Jake learned about her world, about her people who called themselves the Elvari, about their ancient cities, their battles, and their leaders. And he learned about her past. Leora had once ruled this city with her husband, a great warrior who led their armies. But one day he betrayed them. He made a secret deal with outsiders and vanished, taking soldiers with him. Since then, Leora had stepped down. The council ruled now, weak and divided. Danger was rising again, but no one wanted to fight. Jake listened, sometimes giving quiet advice. Leora noticed he had a calm way of thinking, not rash like her former husband, not proud, but focused. She began to ask him what he would do if he were her. "You're asking a pilot for war advice?" Jake joked once. "You see what others miss." Leora replied. One evening, as the sun set behind the cliffs, painting the sky orange and pink, Leora came to Jake with a long, narrow case. She placed it in front of him. "Open it," she said. He did. Inside was a sword. Its blade was silver, with faint blue lines running through it. The handle was black and shaped for two hands. It looked old, but strong. "This sword," Leora said softly, "belonged to my ex-husband. He used it in many battles. It was once a symbol of honor. Now it brings shame." Jake looked up at her. "Why are you showing me this?" "'Cause I kept it hidden for years, yet now I feel it should not stay hidden." She stepped closer. "I want you to have it." Jake blinked. "Me? You came to us by chance? But you stayed with honor. You do not seek power. Yet I see strength in you. Strength my people need." Jake stood slowly, lifting the sword. It felt heavier than it looked. And as he held it, the lines on the blade began to glow faintly. "You trust me with this?" he asked. Liora nodded. "Yes, more than I ever trusted him." Jake stood in the soft glow of the twin moons, holding the sword that once belonged to a traitor. The weight of it wasn't just in the metal. It was in the silence that followed Leora's words, in the air between them. No, she had given him something. Powerful. Not just a weapon, but a piece of her past. "It feels alive," Jake said, staring at the faint blue lines running through the blade. Leora nodded. "The sword is old. It holds memory. Not in the way your machines do, but in the way of spirit and bond. It listens. And it remembers who carries it. Does it like me?" he said with a weak smile, trying to lighten the moment. Laura didn't smile, but her eyes softened. "We'll see." Over the next few days, Leora began to train Jake. She took him to a quiet field near the river, where stones marked old battle sites. Her movements with the blade were smooth and sharp. Jake followed. Slow at first, unsure, but he was a quick learner. His body remembered basic combat drills from his days on Earth, though this style was different, more flowing. Like dancing with danger, she corrected his steps, his grip, his balance. She didn't go easy on him. Again she would. Say when he slipped, faster when he hesitated. Sometimes Jake found himself breathing hard, bruised and sore. But each day he got better. The sword began to move with him. And sometimes, when his focus was right, glowed brighter, like it was guiding him. One morning, after a long session, Leora handed him water and said, "The sword accepts you." "What makes you say that?" "Because you haven't dropped it in 2 days," she replied. He laughed, and this time she smiled too, just a little. But peace didn't last long. Rumors began to spread through the city. Strange ships seen on the edges of the sky. Fires in the mountains. Scouts not returning. The council, made of cautious elders, debated endlessly. Some wanted to hide. Others wanted to wait. Liora stood before them in the main hall and said, "If we wait, we lose everything." But they didn't listen. Outside the council chamber, Jake asked, "Do they always talk this much and do so little?" "Yes," she answered without hesitation. Jake looked up at the sky. "We need to be ready. This planet is too beautiful to let it burn." That night, Jake sat alone near the river, sharpening the sword even though it didn't need it. He thought about Earth. About the simple life he had before. He never asked to be part of someone else's war. But now, he couldn't walk away. He heard footsteps and turned. Leora stood there, watching him. "You could leave the city," she said. "Go live quietly in the south." Many would. No one would blame you. Jake looked at her, the moonlight on her face. "And leave you to fight alone?" She sat beside him, her voice quiet. "You are not one of us. This is not your war." "Maybe not," he said, "but I'm here, and I care. That's enough." She looked at him for a long time, then reached into her cloak and pulled out a small pendant, a crystal carved in the shape of a leaf. She placed it in his hand. "This is a sign of bond among our people," she said. "Friendship. Trust." Jake held it gently.
"Thank you."
But in the shadows of the city, someone watched. A man named Varen once. A council guard now walked. Different paths. He had always disliked Leora's rule. And now, seeing her trust a human, giving him the sword, the pendant, the respect of the people, it was too much. He moved in secret, sending messages to a distant camp, far beyond the mountains, to someone he believed could fix things, someone from the past. The next day, the enemy struck a village near the border. Smoke rose into the sky. The survivors fled to the city, their faces full of fear. This time the council had no choice. They called for fighters to gather. Jake stood among them, the sword at his back. Leora led the defense. "We march at dawn," she said. "They will test our walls. We will remind them what we stand for." As the crowd cheered, Varen slipped away, sending another message. In the quiet hours before sunrise, Jake stood near the gate. Leora joined him, both in light armor. "Are you ready?" she asked. "I have the sword," he said. "And you? I think that's enough." She nodded, then looked at the blade. "When this is over, the people will see you not as a stranger, but as one of us." He looked at her. "What about you?" "I already do," she said quietly. Jake smiled, felt something shift inside him. Something strong and warm. It's not just duty, not just courage, something more. As the gate opened and the army moved out, the first rays of sun touched the blade on his back, and it glowed brighter than ever before. The army marched quietly through the forest path, the soft sound of footsteps mixing with the wind moving through the glowing trees. Leora walked at the front, her head held high. Behind her, Jake followed, his hand resting on the sword strapped to his back. He had never felt so focused, so alert. Each step felt like it carried meaning. The soldiers around them whispered. Some still doubted the human. Others had started to respect him, especially after seeing how the sword reacted to him. No one else could hold it without the blade dimming. But in Jake's hands, it pulsed with a faint blue light, like it had chosen him. They reached a small ridge overlooking the burned village. The houses were broken, black smoke rising from the ruins. Figures moved below, strange armored creatures. Not like the Elvari. They had dark skin like stone, glowing red eyes, and sharp weapons that looked alive. Leora narrowed her eyes. "They are not just bandits. They belong to my ex-husband's new army." Jake watched carefully. "How many do you think?" "Least 30 here," she said. "More are surely nearby." "What's the plan?" Leora looked at him. "We strike first." She raised her hand, and her warriors moved into position. No horns, no loud calls, just quick, quiet movement. The Elvari had always fought with grace and speed. And now, they had something more. A human who had nothing to prove. Only something to protect. The attack began with silent arrows flying. Through the trees, the enemy didn't expect it. Panic spread in their lines. Jake jumped down beside Leora, drawing the sword. It glowed brighter with each strike. It moved fast and clean, slicing through enemy blades like they were paper. He wasn't the strongest, but he was steady, and the sword responded to him. One of the enemy warriors charged at him with a spear, roaring. Jake blocked the strike, twisted, and knocked the weapon away. With one quick motion, he brought the sword down and stopped the enemy cold. Leora fought beside him, her own blade sharp and sure. They moved like a pair, covering each other's sides, understanding each other without speaking. The fight didn't last long. Within minutes, the enemy scattered. "Leave one." Alive, Leora ordered. A soldier grabbed a wounded enemy. Leora stood over him. "Who leads you?" she asked. The creature coughed, then smiled with cracked teeth. "You already know. He's coming. And he wants his sword back." Leora's face turned cold. Jake stepped closer. "He won't get it." Creature laughed weakly. "We'll see, human." Enemy was taken prisoner. Leora gave the order to burn what was left of the enemy camp and return to the city. Jake walked beside her in silence for a while. Finally, he asked, "Your ex-husband, what's he really after?" Leora looked at the trees as they passed. "He wants to rule. Believes I made him weak. He thinks betrayal made him strong, and the sword. It was once a symbol of his power," she said. "He believes if he holds it again, he can control the people, that they'll follow him." Jake shook his head. "But the sword doesn't want him anymore." "No," Leora said. "It wants you." The words stayed with Jake long after they returned to the city. People gathered at the gates to cheer their victory. They had seen the smoke, heard the news. For the first time, many looked at Jake, not with fear or suspicion, but with hope. The council, however, remained quiet. They had not approved the mission, but they also could not argue with its success. Still, whispers spread. Not everyone liked that a human carried the sword of a former warlord. Not everyone liked that Leora trusted him. In a dark corner of the city, Varen met with a shadowed figure, a cloaked stranger with a scar across his cheek. "He fights well," Varen said, "but he's still human." "It doesn't matter," the stranger replied. "The sword was mine. It will be mine again. We'll need help getting past the walls. I already have it." A plan was in motion. Back in the hall, Jake cleaned the sword slowly, wiping dust and dirt from the glowing lines. Leora entered, removing her armor. "We won today," she said. "Yes," Jake replied, "but this isn't over." "No," she agreed. "He'll come for us soon. With more soldiers. Stronger ones." Jake paused, then asked, "Do you ever think, maybe I shouldn't be here?" Leora looked at him closely. "Do you want to leave?" "No," he said quickly. I never asked for this. But now I feel like I'm part of it." "You are," she said softly. "You became part of it the moment you stood beside me." She stepped closer. "I know what the sword means, but it's not the blade that gives you power. It's your heart, your choices." Jake nodded. "I won't let him take this city or you." She placed her hand on his shoulder. "I know." Outside, the stars began to shine, and a cold wind moved through the stone walls. The night was calm, but it would not stay that way, because far beyond the hills, an army was gathering, and at its center stood a man in black armor. Once a husband, now a conqueror, he was coming home. The city buzzed with a quiet tension. The victory against the first wave of the enemy had lifted spirits, but everyone knew it was only the beginning. Leora walked through the market square, her gaze sharp and alert. Traders whispered, children peeked from behind stalls, and elders exchanged worried glances. Jake stayed close behind her, still carrying the sword that glowed faintly against the afternoon sun. The blade was no longer just a weapon. It had become a symbol of hope, of trust, and of change. Liora stopped near the council hall. She turned to Jake. "We must prepare. The ex-husband's army grows every day. Soon they will try to take the city itself." Jake nodded. "What can we do?" "The council seems afraid to act." "Fear weakens them," Leora said, "but not me, not you." She pushed open the heavy doors of the hall. Inside, the council elders sat around a large table, their faces tired and worried. "Your army has won the border battle," said Elder Terran, his voice calm but firm. "But sending soldiers without council approval risks more than just lives." "We have no time for rules when our homes are in danger," Leora replied. "The people need strength." Jake stepped forward, sword in hand. "I am not here to break your laws, but to protect your people." Oh. A quiet murmur rose in the room. "A human carrying the sword of our once leader," Elder Maris said. "How can we trust this?" Leora's eyes flashed. "Because he fights with honor, because he saved our people." Some elders looked away, others scowled. "We cannot afford division now," Jake said. "If we stand united, we can stop the enemy." Elder Terran sighed. "We will call for reinforcements from the outer cities. But until then, you must hold the line." Leora nodded. "We will." After the meeting, Jake and Leora walked through the gardens outside. The air smelled of blooming flowers and fresh earth. But neither could relax. "There is something I must tell you," Leora said quietly. Jake looked at her. "What is it?" "The ex-husband is stronger than we thought. He commands loyalty, not just through fear, but through promises of power." "How many soldiers does he have?" "More than 500? Many are mercenaries from other worlds." Jake frowned. "That is a large force." "Yes," Leora said, "and they are coming." Over the next days, Jake trained harder than ever. His sword responded to his will, its glow growing stronger. Leora taught him the old ways, not just fighting but leadership. How to inspire courage, how to make quick decisions. One evening, as the city slept, Jake heard soft footsteps outside his room. He opened the door to find Leora waiting. "Come," she said. "There is someone you must meet." She led him through quiet halls to a small chamber where an old woman sat by a fire. Her hair was silver, her eyes kind but tired. "This is Elder Mina," Leora said. "She remembers the days before the betrayal." Mina smiled. "You carry the sword well, human." "Thank you," Jake said, bowing slightly. Mina gestured for him to sit. "The sword holds more than power, carries the soul of those who fought for this land. Your bond with it means you have accepted their legacy." Jake looked down at the sword resting on his lap. "I want to protect this place." Mina nodded. "And you will need allies, not just warriors, but those who believe." "In peace," Leora spoke softly. "City's strength is its people. Must unite them." As Jake and Leora left the chamber, the city's alarm suddenly blared. Red lights flashed across the walls. "What is happening?" Jake asked. "An attack," Leora said, her voice steady but urgent. "The ex-husband's forces are here." They rushed to the city gates, where soldiers readied their weapons. Outside, dark shapes moved in the twilight. More than ever before, mercenaries, armored and ready. "Hold your ground," Leora shouted to the defenders. Jake gripped the sword tightly. Blade's glow pulsed faster, as if sensing the coming battle. The enemy charged. The clash was fierce. Swords met shields, arrows flew, and the sounds of battle filled the air. Jake fought beside Leora, moving with the sword as if it were part of him. The warriors followed their queen's lead, inspired by her courage and the human who carried the sword of their past. But the enemy was strong and many. The gates shook under the assault. In the chaos, Varen appeared in the crowd. He had slipped into the city unnoticed. He moved toward Leora with a hidden blade, his face twisted with anger. Jake saw him just in time. "Leora, watch out," he yelled, pushing her aside. Varen lunged at Leora, but Jake blocked the attack with the sword. The blade glowed bright blue, and Varen staggered back, surprised. The fight between Jake and Varen was swift and fierce. Steel rang against steel, but Jake's determination was stronger. With a final strike, Varen's blade was knocked from his hand. Leora stood, breathing hard but unharmed. "Traitor," she spat. Soldiers quickly surrounded Varen and took him prisoner. Outside, the battle raged on, but the defenders were gaining ground. The ex-husband's forces retreated, leaving behind the wounded and the defeated. As the sun rose, the city was safe for now. Laura turned to Jake, her eyes full of gratitude. "You saved my life," she said. "We save each other," he replied. The sword rested in Jake's hands, still glowing faintly. They knew the war was far from over, but together they would face whatever came next. The days after the battle were filled with quiet preparation. The city healed its wounds while warriors sharpened their blades and trained harder. Jake spent hours practicing with the sword, feeling its power grow as he learned more about its history and spirit. Leora was by his side, guiding him not only as a warrior, but as a leader. One morning, Leora summoned Jake to the council chamber. The elders sat in a semicircle, their faces serious but hopeful. "The enemy will not stop," Elder Terran said. "We must make a choice. Fight with all we have, or lose everything." Leora stood tall. "We fight, and we fight as one." Jake nodded. "I will stand with you, and with your people." The council agreed to send messengers to nearby allies, calling for support. Time was short. That night, Jake and Leora walked through the quiet streets. The city's lights flickered softly, and the stars shone clear above. "Do you ever think about home?" Leora asked. Jake smiled faintly. "Yes, but this place feels like home now. Because of you, and because of the people." She looked at him, her eyes reflecting the stars. "You've changed much since you arrived, and you?" Jake asked. "I have learned to trust again. Because of you." Their moment was interrupted by a sudden noise. A young scout ran toward them, breathless. "An army approaches," he said. "It's far larger than before." Jake and Leora exchanged a quick glance. We must prepare, Leora said. The city's defenders gathered at the walls. Children and elders were moved to safe places. The air was thick with tension. Jake walked to the front, holding the sword. The glowing blade was a beacon, shining bright against the darkening sky. Tonight, said we fight for our future. Leora's warriors cheered. The people stood united. Hours later, the enemy arrived. Their numbers were overwhelming. Hundreds of armored soldiers with strange weapons that hummed with energy. The battle was brutal. The sky lit up with flashes of light and the sounds of clashing metal. Jake fought fiercely, the sword glowing stronger with each strike. Leora moved like a shadow, cutting through enemies with grace and power. At one point, Jake found himself face to face with a tall soldier in black armor. The man's eyes burned with hate. You carry a sword that does not belong to you. The soldier growled. This sword belongs to those who fight for what is right, Jake replied. Their swords. Met in a shower of sparks? The fight was intense, but Jake's heart guided his moves. With a swift strike, he disarmed the man and forced him to surrender. The battle turned in their favor as dawn broke. The enemy army began to retreat. Exhausted but victorious, Jake and Leora stood together on the walls, watching the rising sun. This is only the beginning, Leora said. Then we will be ready, Jake replied. Days later, news came that the ex-husband himself was leading the next attack. His army was larger, his anger deeper. Jake and Leora knew the final battle was near. They gathered their forces, preparing for a fight that would decide the fate of the city and the future of the planet. The sword, once a symbol of betrayal, now shone with hope in the hands of a human who had become a hero. And Leora, queen, who had lost everything, found strength again beside him. The day of the final battle arrived, with heavy clouds covering the sky. The city's walls stood tall, lined with warriors ready to defend their homes. Jake stood beside Leora, gripping the sword that had become more than a weapon. It was a symbol of trust, hope, and new beginnings. Across the valley, the enemy army gathered. At its center stood the Ex's band, cloaked in black armor, his face cold and determined. His eyes locked on the city, but when he saw the glowing sword in Jake's hands, a cruel smile crossed his lips. So, the human wields my blade, he said to his commanders. Let us see if he is worthy. The battle began with a roar that shook the earth. Arrows flew, energy blasts lit the sky, and warriors charged with fierce cries. Jake moved with the sword, its glow bright and steady. Leora fought beside him, her blade flashing like lightning. Together, they led their people with courage and strength. The ex-husband pushed forward, breaking through the lines, searching for Jake and Leora. When he found them, he called out, "Give me back my sword, Leora. You know it belongs to me." Leora's. The voice was strong. That sword belongs to the people now. It chooses its bearer. The ex-husband sneered and charged at Jake. Their swords clashed in a shower of sparks. The battle between them was fierce and skillful, each strike filled. With years of pain and betrayal, Jake fought not with anger, but with purpose. The sword responded to his heart, glowing with a blue light that seemed to fill the air around them. The X's band struck hard, but Jake blocked and twisted, finding an opening. With one swift move, he disarmed the man and forced him to his knees. This sword is not a tool for betrayal, Jake said quietly. It is a symbol of trust and honor. The ex-husband looked up, defeated but alive. Leora stepped forward. You will answer for your actions, but your time ruling is over. The enemy army, seeing their leader defeated, laid down their weapons. Peace settled over the battlefield. Back in the city, celebrations began. People cheered for their warriors, for Jake and for Leora. The sword was placed in the city's hall, shining as a reminder of what had been lost and what was now possible. Jake and Leora stood together, looking out over the city they had fought to save. This sword brought pain. Once, Leora said, but with you, it brings hope. Jake smiled. We built something stronger than any blade, trust. Their bond was no longer just of warrior and queen, it was of partners, friends, and something deeper. The people of the city began to rebuild, sharing stories of courage and unity. Humans and Elvari learned from each other, their worlds joined by respect and friendship, and in the quiet moments, Jake held the sword close, remembering the journey from stranger to hero, from exile to family. The alien wife looked at him and said softly, "This was my ex-husband's sword, human, but I trust you with it now." And with those words, Jake knew he was home.